Chapter 9. Silva had refused Kieran when he offered to bring her books. She desperately wanted them, but the respite they would provide from the monotony of staring at the quarantine room's plaster walls wouldn't be worth losing them to the burn crew's fires after the waiting period was over. She rolled another pinch of bread into a tiny ball and stacked it in the pile forming at the bottom of her empty stew bowl. Her task did little to blunt the frustration that simmered in her mind. It was ironic how many times she had wished to be left alone, and now she found herself wishing for anything to take her mind off the silence. Was I really alone, though? She had her work, and that was comfort enough. People could occupy her mind for a while, but relationships were the only puzzles she couldn't find the patience or will to solve. She much preferred concrete variables, results that could be calculated, and predictable outcomes. People changed. The variables driving their behavior changed in weight and effect, and the ability to manipulate her reactions to elicit the correct response was not natural to her. Her failures showed her she needed to practice. Bram and Kieran acted as patient tutors in that regard, humoring her when her single-minded nature got the best of her, then coaching her afterward. She was proud of her progress, thinking of her dealings with Barton. When she wore blue, her genius was the only thing shielding her. In the end, all it proved was that brilliance could win arguments, open doors, and still leave her standing alone. 4.5 years earlier, 103rd Division Headquarters, Level 1 of the Spire, Limbo, Greyhaven. Seasons inside the Spire varied greatly by level. In Limbo, the weather chose whatever expression of the season that best inflicted the feeling of hopeless monotony on the souls within. Winter in the 103 saw temperatures cold enough to bite, but never cold enough to freeze. A constant wind blew through every street and alley, at a speed that felt more mechanical than natural. A curated irritation that touched every soldier who dared exit the shelter of their walls. Silva huddled on the floor of Dawnman's private library in her small clothes, surrounded by half a dozen books that lay open waiting in queue for her attention. She moved from one book to the next, making notes on her pad as she broke down the mathematics behind the runes. The patterns calibrated the heat sinks that regulated temperature in shard engine boilers. Any artificer could copy the runes on blind faith, hoping the engine wouldn't overheat and explode, but Silva needed to know how the specific rune pattern was used to not only allow heat to build up to a certain point, but also how it seemingly had an unlimited capacity to bleed it off, as the heat from the shard boiled the water in the engine. Waiting in line behind the books, Alrik Dawnman busied himself with his pipe in a reading chair near the fire. She could feel his attention slide across her, deflected by the books. The man had no reason to complain. She had very competently performed what he expected, relieving some of her stress, while unlocking access to much more advanced material than he initially intended, even going so far as to check books out on her behalf at the library. The bitch of a librarian scowled at her every time she came by to walk the stacks, gathering her list. She especially hated that Dawnman's privileges as a professor required that she gather the books and send a runner to deliver them to his residence. You know, it's normal, even sometimes enjoyable, to have conversations about things other than mathematics with someone you're spending so much time with, Alrik said carefully. Silva swallowed her annoyance. Alrik, we have been over this. I do not ignore you because I don't enjoy your company. 2 years for the training program is a very limited amount of time to prepare, so that the Council of Regents will have no choice but to offer me a teaching position so I can stay on the research track. Any extra activities must fit around my purpose. Our friendship is secondary to that goal right now. Perhaps when I secure tenure, I will have more time to speak about the weather that never seems to change. And here I was, thinking that you were here seeking a way to gain favor with the Regents. It would work, you know. A word from me, and you're all but guaranteed a teaching position. You don't need to kill yourself for something you already have. Why don't we? You will not, Silva said. The venom in her voice, and the snap of the book she held closing made Alrik recoil. Silva was on her feet, gathering her things, and pulling on the breeches of her uniform too fast for him to formulate a response. If I perform research for the Aegis, it will be on my own merit. I want no favor from you in that regard, she continued. I didn't mean, Your intentions have nothing to do with it, she said, cutting him off again. I am capable of research. I will make contributions to the body of work this division has been building for over a century. Anything you do to affect it taints my effort. When I am offered the position, it will be because I am the most qualified to design and implement improvements to the way we approach runework. So you're saying I shouldn't continue to inflate your marks in my class? He asked, coldly. Silver's cheeks burned with anger. You haven't been inflating my marks. My work has been, and will continue to be flawless. But yes, Major, I want you to treat my work the same as any other student. If I find you do otherwise, it will be the end of this little diversion. She stormed out of the room before he could say anything else. She made her way through the hallway, separating his penthouse from his Aegis-supplied private lab. Damn your temper, Silver. Her progress over the last 6 months had been incredible. She was allowed to study, given advanced texts, and only had to ask Alric to explain any element that slowed her. As similar as they were when talking about their work, Alric had a different gear for personal connection that Silver just couldn't find. He was patient, even sweet, but Silver had work to do. She could eat and work at the same time. What use did she have for a steam carriage ride to a restaurant far enough from the division to avoid any accusations of impropriety? So long as Alric would tolerate quick meals and passionate but brief bursts of intimacy, Silver would resist any further time away from her studies. If it really came down to choosing between losing her books and an evening out, she supposed she would have to consent to the interruption. Thankfully, it hadn't yet come to that. She winced as wind cut through her on the walk back to her dormitory. Her field practicals on runework were that afternoon, and both her uniform and her body needed a thorough washing. The second she opened her door, eyes bored into her, making her wince. Reiner sat on her bunk, arms crossed and eyebrow arched high enough to threaten the girl's hairline. I'd ask where you've been, but you smell of old books and pipe smoke. Honestly, Silver, I worried that you would be a bore as a bunkmate, but I hardly see you, and when I do, I am forced to worry for your future. Can't you find a more ordinary scandal to bury yourself beneath? If Major Dorneman is chafed by any of your rough edges, you'll not only lose any chance at research, you'll end up on the front lines. Silver nodded along as she stripped her uniform off, placing it into the bags collected for laundry. Reiner, I don't know what you are talking about, Silver said. I have just been in the library studying. Really? Reiner said incredulously. That's what I suggested when Gentry stopped by this morning, but he said he'd just come from there. Says a lot that he looked there first. You expect me to keep lying to him when he asks after you? I didn't say which library, Silver said with a devilish smile. And it's none of his business where I am, or what I am doing. I can't figure out what it is he wants from me. He should have given up by now. Reiner sighed loudly. That makes 2 of us. You'd be much better off spending time with someone your age. Gentry is an excellent match, and his family ties would see you in research. Isn't that what you want? Silver felt her anger beginning to boil again, but she held a deep breath for a moment and let it go. I will not be propped up by power or position. I want my position to come from my competence, not from matrimony. If I choose to be with someone, it will have nothing to do with my career. That sounds fine, Reiner said. But these things can affect you as much when you say no as when you say yes. Silver shook her head, not wanting the lecture. I'm going to get in the shower, she said. Then quieter, thanks for covering with Gentry. Everyone offered her help, but they saw her goal as a position teaching instead of fighting on the front lines. The position meant very little to her. It was the knowledge required to attain that position that she craved. If some political or academic favor influenced the offer, then it meant nothing. Both Gentry and Alric thought they could make her happy by handing her the ribbon and letting her skip the race. She didn't want some stupid prize. She wanted to be fast. Stupid men, they understand nothing about me. How could they desire something they so obviously didn't understand? Silver needed her books. Nothing they could do would earn more than a few fleeting moments of her attention until she secured the ability to pursue her research. And if she wasn't talented or clever enough to secure it without their help, then it wasn't something she deserved.